Hello and welcome to the Tech and Sports Podcast. Tech and Sports is a show about how technology is revolutionizing all of the major sports as well as health and fitness. You can find it on your podcast service of choice. My name is Alex Radu, and I'm here with the fabulous Mandy Kovacs.
Hello.
This week, we spoke to David Masson, the Canada country manager of Darktrace. Darktrace just signed a deal with the NHL Players Association to protect players' data, so we'll be exploring what that means later in the episode. Plus, all of the biggest news from the last week, new apps or wearables, and your weekly concussion update. But before we get to that, we would really appreciate it if you would review and rate the Tech and Sports Podcast on iTunes and Google Play, or wherever else you get your podcasts from. It really does help us grow the show, and we really, really appreciate all of the support so far. And with that, sit back and relax, because the Tech and Sports crew is entering the game. So Mandy, the news.
All right, so first up, we have some MLB news because it's officially baseball season. Yay! 3 teams, the Atlanta Braves, the Oakland Athletics, and the Seattle Mariners, have added biometric security from a company called Clear to make their stadiums safer for live events. So the biometric security platform allows fans to enroll online once for free so that they can then use a fast Clear lane for expedited entry into games. So the company Clear is actually working on using the platform for alcohol sales as well, but that's going to come in the next few months, so we'll have to stay tuned for that. Clear's platform is used by another 11 teams within the MLB, the NBA, and MLS, including Comerica Park in Detroit, Coors Field in Denver, American Airlines Arena and the Marlins Park in Miami, AT&T Park in San Francisco, and Citi Field and Yankee Stadium in New York.
Yeah, I mean, we see a lot of stadiums kind of seeing all this new technology, and it's a major theme we have in almost all of these news weeks. So it'll be interesting to see how stadiums that are really old and established, like for instance Citi Field and Yankee Stadium, and see how they adapt technology compared to brand new stadiums, because that's going to be a huge conversation we have going forward.
Absolutely. All right, next, the Sacramento Kings hosted a tech night last week, and fans were actually able to use their phones to unlock prizes in augmented reality. So during the game, a virtual reality prize cannon was shooting out different prizes, and fans could use the Kings app to tap on the prizes floating around them in VR to snag one and then eventually go pick it up in real life after the game. And so during the tech night, there was also a 3D printer set up for fans to use, a tabletop robot battle, a gaming station, and a tech competition where startups pitched their ideas to fans on the Jumbotron, and then judges picked the winner after the game, who would then receive $10,000 and an opportunity to pitch again their idea to angel investors.
This is, I think, the second week in a row we've talked about Sacramento.
Yeah, they're really doing a lot.
Yeah, and I guess to most people, the Sacramento Kings doing things seems pretty random. But when you look at it, Sacramento is right next to Silicon Valley.
Yeah, makes sense.
I mean, it isn't, it's only, I think, about an hour or so drive, or a couple hours drive from San Francisco. So it makes actually a lot of sense. It's also a cheaper town, so, maybe they're doing a little more stuff too. So it's cool to see what Sacramento's doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Got to keep an eye on them.
Yep. All right, next, apparently the PGA Tour has partnered with a streaming company called Xumo to develop its first ever video channel, which will be available on smart TV devices from LG, Sharp, Vizio, and Panasonic. So the video channel will feature live coverage of PGA events, as well as an on-demand highlights, analysis, and interviews to complement the coverage on traditional cable TV. I haven't found any price points for this yet, but I doubt it's free, so we'll have to keep you posted on that as well.
So this is kind of like a NHL Network or NBA League Pass type thing. Yeah,
because a lot of the reports that I saw were saying that this could easily step on some of the toes of some of the broadcasters that have paid for the rights to broadcast PGA Tours, but whoever created this said no, it was really just like a complimentary thing.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so we'll see. And now, kind of similar news, Turner has announced the launch of its new live sports streaming service called Bleacher Report Live, which is expected to roll out in April for both mobile and desktop devices. So the service isn't only just subscription-based, however, it'll also be a pay-per-game option for anyone that doesn't want to commit to a year-long subscription. So at first, pay-per-game will be the only option, but subscriptions will come later on. And all content will be free, actually, for the first few months as part of an introductory preview period. And so this service will have games from the NBA, Champions League, and the Europa League, NCAA, the PGA, National Lacrosse League, the Spring League for the NFL, Red Bull events, and the World Arm Wrestling League. Which I don't know who's watching that.
I didn't know that existed, but
did not either.
I am intrigued.
Do you want to join?
I mean, I wouldn't be very good at it.
No, terrible at that.
Yeah, but no, okay. It'll be interesting to see too how this ties into just Bleacher Report in general.
Yeah.
It is a, sports media platform. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to see too, because if this could, keep Bleacher Report afloat as well and give them another way to accumulate revenue for their publication and, keep sports writing alive.
Yeah.
That's a cool thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, Bleacher Report was actually bought by Turner in 2012. And so what I read was that they used this name because they really want this to appeal to millennials, of course. So yeah, we'll see how it does.
Yeah, I've never understood the point of creating a different brand when you already have an existing brand.
Exactly.
Bleacher Report is a well-known brand in sports. Mm-hmm. So why not keep it? Why not continue rolling with it or expanding that brand rather than creating a new brand?
Exactly.
So,
agreed. All right, and now apparently Nikon has unveiled 2 new automated camera systems called the Polycam Chat and the Polycam Player, which are meant to help broadcasters and sports organizations capture unique angles and a wider range of multi-view perspectives for better analysis and reduced costs. So Polycam Chat automates camera operations and basically does the job of multiple studio cameramen all at once on its own. It combines facial and limb recognition and can be used to film up to 4 presenters and guests in one studio because it can easily track a talking head. And the Polycam Player is a robotic video capture system that can move and adjust both the zoom and the focus to keep whoever it's filming in the shots. It's also designed to mimic the natural movement of a camera operator from locations where it would be dangerous or impractical to place a person. So, this is really clever stuff, but my initial reaction was that this is probably going to kill a lot of jobs in the media and entertainment industry. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. If this really does work, or if this really does automate some of these, interactions or, whatever, almost exactly like a human, then, it will get rid of some jobs. Yeah. Obviously, it's still an art form, so you're always going to still have humans involved with it.
Right, but less for sport.
Yeah, but for sports, I think it's going to be really interesting too if it's just a computer that's following the play instead of a human. Granted, I guess if there's a flaw or something like that, then they need a human there still.
True.
So I still think this is far away, but yeah, I think it could totally or maybe not completely eliminate video staffs. But he'll definitely cut into them.
Yeah, I do think that this is the future anyways. It's just happening sooner than we expected, maybe. You're already seeing drone cameras and stuff, so
yeah,
this is an evolution of that.
It depends on how people use them too.
Right.
If they use them just to capture interesting shots that humans can't, then yeah, awesome. That is going to be a thing. But if it's probably also going to get rid of at least some human jobs.
Yeah.
Maybe not all of them, but some.
Agreed. All right, and our last story, if you didn't hear, the NFL has changed its tackling rules so that players get a 15-yard penalty if they lower their heads to initiate and make contact against an opponent. So they did this as part of the league's ongoing efforts to curb head injuries, and it pairs really well with another announcement that I saw this week from Texas. So the Texas High School Coaches Association picked a company called Atavis to oversee the certification process for a new mandatory statewide tackling certification program that was created to help football players improve their tackling techniques in a way that doesn't hurt them or their opponents. So Atavis is a Seattle-based startup that provides a Tacklytics platform that takes video from football games and basically analyzes and evaluates what it sees and reports back to coaches on how their players are tackling and what can be improved. So the company encourages players to make contact with their shoulders instead of heads. So I do wonder if maybe we'll see its platform or a similar one adopted by the NFL to help defensive coordinators and coaches issue in this new heads-up rule. So the Tacklytics platform tracks and evaluates tackling form between players in different games and suggests how they can improve by providing all the data in a portal for coaches to access. So Atavis works with a bunch of different college programs like Ohio State and the University of Washington, and it also inspired Seattle Seahawks head coach Pete Carroll to start encouraging safer tackles back in 2016.
So this ties in really well with, we keep talking about how part of concussions or fixing a concussion problem is changing how the sports are played.
Right.
So this is part of it. Because it's not like, and we'll see, we have a ton of concussion stuff later, including in the wearables section and then our concussion update.
Yeah.
It's not a problem that's going to be solved in a day because it does have so many aspects of it. And this is one of them, is changing how you play as a child so that you don't have these bad habits that you've been doing for, your entire football career when tackling's been involved, and then you're in college and you just continue to do that. But if you, from the ground up, you are not doing that, it's a lot safer.
Yeah, because a lot of the reaction for this NFL rule change has been negative. Like, a lot of people have spoken out, like even Stephen Amell from Arrow, if anyone knows that show on CW. But he said, it's just dumb because you can't ask players who have already been in the league for a number of years to now completely change their playing style or position. But like you said, if you start earlier and you get this platform actually out to young kids, high schoolers, college players, then you have a chance of actually changing this culture. And I think that's a good idea. It's not changing football drastically, but it's changing it enough that people are safer.
Exactly. And to the point of, you can't ask players to change. I mean, you can ask players to change, and they should, but it's a lot harder when you're in your 20s or early 30s to change something you've been doing for over a decade.
Right.
So than it is if you just never learn it in the first place.
Well, especially the coaches, too, that are usually 40, 50 plus, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because, it's not even just changing players' mentality. It's also the coaches and coordinators and all that stuff.
For sure.
Yeah. All right, well, that's it for today's news section. We're going to move on to new apps and wearables.
All right, so to start with the new apps and wearables this week, we have some rumors of the Apple Watch Series 4 that will reportedly launch in the third quarter of 2018. So July, August, or September, and that's most likely September, as that's when when Apple has traditionally released the Apple Watch. So this is being reported by KGI analyst Ming-Chi Kuo via 9to5Mac. Which is a very big Apple website. The Series 4 Apple Watch supposedly will have a 15% larger display, a new trendy design, enhanced sensors for health monitoring beyond just heart rate, and longer battery life, which is kind of standard in what you'd expect, just based off of previous iterations. So it's interesting to note that we talk a lot about these becoming necessary health devices, and Apple made strides in that department with the Series 3, which doubled sales from Series 2. So we'll have to see how the Series 4 fares. But Amanda, you and I talk about a lot how wearables are going to become really popular because they'll be also medical devices.
Right.
And if Apple really nails that and makes the Apple Watch that type of device, that's golden. Next, they just need to move it so that it works with Android devices and stuff, so that people who are not Apple users can fully use them.
Yeah, that would be nice. This sounds great. Interesting, 15% larger display. I feel like smartwatches, and especially the Apple Watch, is big enough. I don't know.
15% at that size is very, very small.
See, I was going to say 15% at that size is big.
It's not a huge increase. It'll be half a pinky thumbnail, not even.
Yeah, but even a couple millimeters is enough for it to go from normal size to chunky.
Yeah, but the Ionic you have is small, is already bigger than the Apple Watch.
I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure it is.
I don't know. We'll have to get our rulers out. But anyways, no, that sounds great. I'm looking forward to it. Maybe I'll actually get it. I don't know.
We'll see. All right, so next, Reebok has unveiled the latest shoe coming out of its Liquid factory, the Liquid Float Rider Run. So the shoe was made with Reebok's new 3D printing manufacturing process that debuted a couple years ago, and is supposedly 20% lighter than the original version, and has two features called Liquid Lace and Liquid Grip. Basically, Reebok is removing traditional laces by 3D printing laces directly onto the shoe. This means it is a stretch-to-fit slip-on shoe because the Liquid factory process stretches across the top of the shoe at key pressure points so that your foot stays in place. It basically does what laces would do, but then also gives you the convenience of slipping the shoes on. So Liquid Grip then is new 3D printing on the sole of the shoe that promises better traction. The shoes are now available for a limited time and are $180 US.
I'm all for people bringing back slip-on shoes. It's annoying tying laces. If I could get Velcro shoes as an adult, I would. So, yeah, cool, great. It's 3D printing, that's fun.
Yeah, it's the 20% lighter, the more traction. It's very interesting to see. We're going to be seeing a lot of new shoes do really cool things just because they've completely changed the manufacturing process for literally the first time in decades.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's going to be cool to keep an eye on shoes in the next couple of years. So for our last story, we have a new concussion tracker app. So this transitions really nicely into our next segment on concussions. This new app comes from an organization called Complete Concussion Management, which is a network of trained healthcare practitioners that collaborate with physicians to co-manage concussion injuries. So this concussion tracker app supports communication between sports, schools, parents, and healthcare practitioners to keep everyone up to date on when a concussion occurs and throughout the recovery process. So coaches, trainers, and teachers can assess and report suspected concussions directly to healthcare practitioners. They can access concussion training materials, stay informed about the recovery progress and any milestones obtained, and send regular updates to and receive clearance notifications. So patients, athletes, and parents can then find clinics and book appointments really easily through the app, and then provide regular updates such as ongoing symptoms to healthcare professionals and access concussion records. So the Concussion Tracker app is free to everyone and is currently available on the Apple App Store and Google Play Store in the US and Canada. I'm not sure about the rest of the world, but it's definitely here in Canada, as well as in the US. And so this organization is doing a bunch of cool stuff around concussions, and we'll actually be speaking more with them as part of our discussion segment in a future episode.
Yes. I mean, I love this idea. I mean, the whole, concussions are messy enough as it is, but this is a great way, to get everyone on the same page. Everyone's looking at the same data. Everyone's looking at all the same things, when it comes to booking clinics or appointments with different specialists. So I love it.
Yeah, anything that makes this whole process easier and eliminates confusion, because confusion's such a heavy part of concussions, and just by looking on the App Store and looking through some of the reviews about talking about how parents found it very easy to just book appointments and stuff like that, is super important. You need to be able to protect your kids and athletes, and this is a cool way to do it.
Right, and there's always a disconnect, especially between kids and parents, right? So parents always need to know more information. Kids sometimes don't have that or don't ask the right questions. So yeah, this is great. I love it.
So next we'll be doing our concussion update. And as always, we start with every day. A large portion of athletes with a history of repetitive head trauma are battling with a progressive neurodegenerative brain disease called CTE. Symptoms of CTE include blurred vision, dementia, depression, headaches, memory loss, and mood swings. There is no cure, and it only gets worse with time. This is the number one issue in sports, so every week we'll be updating you on what is happening in the world of concussion prevention. So, in concussion news this week, it revolves around Australia starting its first brain bank for studying sports-related head injuries, specifically around CTE. So this comes from the Sydney Morning Herald, written by Esther Hand. So Brain Bank's purpose is to collect donated brains from former athletes for scientific study. This is the first time a brain bank has been developed outside of the United States. The Australian Sports Brain Bank will be launched at Sydney University's Brain and Mind Centre from a collaboration between Sydney University and the Royal Prince Alfred Hospital. The centre is calling on athletes from a range of sports to pledge their brains so that researchers can study the relationship between head injuries and CTE. And athletes don't need to have a history of head injuries to do this. Healthy brains with no history of concussions or head trauma are encouraged to pledge their brains as well. One specific aim of the Brain Bank, according to Sydney University Associate Professor Michael Buckland, is to find out how prevalent CTE is in Australia. The Brain Bank understands that there are hundreds of diagnoses of CTE in the US, Canada, UK, Ireland, and Brazil, so Australia is probably not an exception. So the goal is to gather 500 brains over the next decade. So this sort of news is important because as of right now, CTE can only be diagnosed after an autopsy. We can determine if players have a concussion, but we really can't actually discern CTE until an autopsy of the brain is conducted. And the more brain banks there are and the more eyeballs we have looking at this problem, the faster we can find a solution. However, this does indicate that this will take some time. We won't be fixing concussions overnight. As they said, they need 500 brains over the next decade. That's the goal, because obviously athletes need to age and then die to pledge their brain, which is making maybe light of a situation that shouldn't be light, but it'll be a while before we actually see any results.
Yeah, I mean, besides this sounding like something a zombie organizes just to eat brains.
Yeah, I said brains a lot in this.
Yeah. No, I think it's a really good idea. And I am actually interested in the differences that they might find between North America and Australia, or just that side of the world, right? Because, I mean, North Americans, I don't know, I want to say that we're a little bit careless.
Australian culture is not too different than North American.
No, that's fair. I mean, we're all Commonwealth countries.
This problem, like CTE also is like really in like the UK and Ireland and all that too.
Of course.
It's not like They're all British. We're all British descendants.
No, exactly. But I mean, Australia doesn't play football. Like, they have rugby. Rugby's very big there.
So they do have a minor football league, and some of the big news here is that it's coming from Australian NFL players as well. So
Are there even any?
There are. So I mean, there are like thousands of people who have played in the NFL. So
that are Australian?
No, just like in general. So there are some Australians.
Yeah, okay, but I can't name any.
I had forgotten to write down the name from this athlete.
That's fine. But anyways, no, I mean, this is cool. I'm excited to see what they eventually find out. We're not going to know for the next 10 or 20 years, but I think that if they can actually get 500 brains, that's a really good starting point.
With this, I'd like to see more countries also do this.
Yeah,
I'd like to see Canada do it. I'd like to see the UK do it. It's like any other thing. The more brain power, so to speak, that you put on a subject, there are hopefully more results that you'll find. And especially if you do it in so many different places with so many different sports, different athletes, I think something to consider is, maybe not the way the culture is, but also, I mean, like the type of nutrition and food and stuff like that they're ingesting their whole lives. Even just climate and stuff like that, like how that affects the brain and the body and stuff like that. I don't know. I'm not a doctor or a scientist. So it'll be really interesting to see what comes out of all this.
Yeah, I agree.
Awesome. So that's it for our concussion update this week. Next up is the discussion.
All right, so for our discussion today, Alex spoke with David Masson, the Canadian country manager of Darktrace, about how the NHL Players Association is using Darktrace's AI cybersecurity tech to protect the sensitive data of 750 professional hockey players across the U.S. and Canada. So let's take a listen.
All right, so I'm here with Dave Mason of Darktrace. Dave, so you're the country manager for Canada and for Darktrace. Can you just explain really quick what Darktrace does, and then we'll get into the news with what you're doing with the NHL Players Association right after?
Yeah, okay. Darktrace, we're a British cybersecurity company, but we're here in Canada. We've been here for a couple of years now. Got offices from West Coast to East Coast. And what Darktrace does is it brings a fundamentally innovative approach to cybersecurity. We're using machine learning and mathematics to find threat on the network, but only using the network's traffic, only using a client or a network's data. We don't use threat intelligence, we don't use rules, we don't use signatures. We just use a client's own data to find change in the data, change in the network, change in the traffic, and from that change to find threat in the network.
Got it. Okay. So with this news with the NHL Players Association, they're now going to be deploying your Darktrace enterprise immune system, I believe. Can you explain kind of how that partnership it will work?
Yeah, absolutely. So they've taken us on board and pretty much plugged it into the network. The great thing about our version of artificial intelligence and using machine learning is it's passive for finding threat in the network. Okay. I don't know how technological you want to go, but we're not inline, we're passive, okay, when we're actually looking for threats. So the great news is we can find all that stuff, but we don't actually affect the network in any way where we're actually doing it. Not inline, don't affect the network. And the NHLPA obviously saw that as a great advantage, because in many ways you don't want something interfering with your network. But what they're also looking for, and what a lot of people are increasingly looking for, is real visibility on the network. If you don't know what you've got, how are you going to protect it? And these days, where is the border of your network? It's really difficult to tell where the edge begins and ends. So they wanted us for the visibility that our technology can provide. And pretty much we'll show you everything that's on the NHLPA network.
Got it. Okay. So from my understanding that there's in the NHLPA, I guess currently, it has about 750 professional hockey players and basically, all of their information across the U.S. and Canada. So is this kind of just another example of how it's not just tech companies that have to worry about cybersecurity. It's really all types of organizations, even in sports.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Look, the cyber threat out there is agnostic to who you are, how big you are, or what you do, okay? One of the features of the attacks we saw in 2017 was their indiscriminateness. That's such an actual word, okay? You can have targeted attacks, but some of the worst events last year were just completely indiscriminate. Companies are being brought down, organizations being brought down, almost like in a drive-by shooting, where the main target missed the main target, but they got everybody else. So the NHLPA and the players and the staff on there, they're just as likely to be targets from being targeted as just being innocent bystanders while attacks going on.
Got it. So it really is kind of just protecting everybody in that network, because whether it's going to be, just their health information or where they live. I mean, some of them are, genuine celebrities as well. That sort of information is important to be protected all the way around.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the same time, you don't want to lock everything up, okay? And then nobody can use it. Too much security means you can't do anything. And the whole idea of IT is to make life easier for everybody. The whole idea of the Internet of Things is to make things easier for everybody. But, unfortunately, because we've got bad guys out there, when you bring in new things like IoT, for us, it makes life easier, but for the bad guys, it just spreads that threat landscape. It spreads the vulnerability that it can have a go at. And often, one of the biggest vulnerabilities on any network is us, the human beings, the users, okay? When we are very fallible individuals. So the NHLPA is always going to say, well, let's get some AI in here and really try and protect everybody and everything on the network and that uses the network.
Got it. Okay. So are you going to now see, because this to me is a little surprising, I guess, that the NHLPA even publicly announced that they are working with cybersecurity, such as you. So do you think we're now going to see more sports organizations or just entertainment organizations publicly state that, hey, we're protecting our players' data, our employees' data?
To be honest with you, I can't really, you'd have to ask the NHLPA why they're going public. Speaking as a company, obviously we're very pleased about it because based in Canada, we're really proud actually that the national sports being, the players, the people who work with it are now being protected by us. Really, really, really pleased about that. But in some ways, if you've got some really cool defenses on your network, if people know that, it's a bit like having a burglar alarm outside your house. The bad guys drive along the street, and obviously they're going to go for the easy targets first, and they drive down a house. And if they've got a choice between the house that's got the burglar alarm that you can see, or the house where nobody's at home, the doors are open, which one do you think you're going to pick?
Yeah, no, that's actually a very, very, very great analogy. Thank you again so much for speaking with us today. This is really informative.
My pleasure, Alex. See you next time.
All right, well, that's it for today's episode. I hope everyone enjoyed Alex's interview with David Masson, the Canadian country manager of Darktrace. Thanks, everyone who listened. Just a reminder that we're also now in a daily format if you'd rather listen that way. You can also follow us on Twitter at ITB Tech and Sports, or our personal accounts at Mandy V. Kovacs and Alex T. Radu. So thanks, everyone. We appreciate it.
Thank you.